Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tay and today I want to make a video about a certain unpopular opinion I have about BLACKPINK that pretty much goes against everything the K-pop community has said about them over the years. The more I thought about this, the more it became apparent that I had to say something because I want to know if other people agree with my reasoning and I need constant validation, ha ha ha. Anyway, please remember that this is my opinion and if for some reason what I say in this video offends you, please get a life instead of posting hate in the comments section lol. Anyway, let's get into the juicy part of this video, why BLACKPINK are the revolution the K-pop industry needs if it wants to survive. When Forever Young came out and I first heard the line BLACKPINK is the revolution, I cringed for 6 hours straight. How is BLACKPINK, a group with hardly any music, who don't get to write their songs, have no say in their concepts, have extremely controlled lives and personas, and are essentially Barbie dolls who sing, going to revolutionize anything? As time went on, I started diving more and more into the theories about why BLACKPINK are so popular despite the lack of content and, as far as has been showcased, talents that are on par with pretty much every other group out there. Through the takes I've seen from fans and non-fans alike, the general idea behind BLACKPINK's success is a mixture of two factors. The first is starving fans for content, so they're forced to hyper-focus on whatever little content they're given and overanalyze it to fit the narrative that has been built by the girls' heavily contrived personas. Let me explain this idea. From the way BLACKPINK are presented to the world, fans are forced to see Rose as the indie girl next door who just wants to make music. That's why her fans are the most vocal about demanding her solo. It's not just that she was the next promised member or that she's the main vocalist, but it's that fans have built up this image of her in their heads that she's a true musician at heart, crying in her room with her guitar, wishing YG would let her release music already. Her image ties into how her fans support her and what they want from her as an artist and what they want YG to give her as her management. For Jisoo, she's the overlooked, forgotten member who, despite having visuals for days, isn't given the same modeling promotions as other members. Unlike Rose, Jisoo's image has never been that she's in love with music, it's that she's the pretty girl visual queen, and so her fans imagine she's also sitting in her room crying because she wants to be on camera. She wants to model, she wants to act, and YG is holding her back. Fans want Jisoo to be recognized for her visual potential, so she will no longer be seen as the member who brings nothing to the table in the way that Jennie brings her rap, Lisa her dancing, and Rose her singing. Side note, this is not me knocking Jisoo at all. I'm speaking about what I've observed within the fandom as a casual fan myself. We haven't gotten to the part where I fully explain my opinion on all of this, I'm just giving background for now. Back to the girls. Jennie was given the fierce fashionista badass image, but somewhere along the way, it got twisted to make her less of the Blair Waldorf YG hoped she'd be, and more of a Regina George type. Her image went from being an anti-hero to being a straight-up villain. With Jennie getting seemingly the best treatment of all the girls, what do her stans have to deep dive into while the girls are on hiatus? Jennie is booked and busy, there's nothing to look into and beg YG to fix because she's doing comparatively well against Rose and Jisoo, right? Wrong. Because Jennie is so hated, her fans think she's crying in her room over the hate comments, which I would personally not be surprised at, and I obviously hope that isn't the case, and she's wishing YG would do something to get it to stop, or to let her show people the kind and thoughtful person she really is, because as we all know, with the Blair Waldorfs and Regina Georges of the world, there are layers beneath of a good person, and if the rest of the world could see Jennie the way she really is, she'd be much more loved and happy, right? And finally we get to Lisa, the outlier by way of nationality, ethnicity, popularity, and unpredictable success. By all means, Lisa should not have been the most famous member of BLACKPINK, it was supposed to be Jennie, who ticks all the YG Center breakout superstar boxes. However, BLACKPINK is not a typical K-pop group or even a typical YG group. By being marketed as a Western-focused girl group, they have to deal with how much Western fans love someone who's different, someone who's an underdog, someone like Lisa. Flash forward a few years and Lisa is almost as famous on her own as the group is as a collective. This seems like the opposite of a problem, but although Lisa gets ads and sponsorships, she is not as booked as someone with her potential should be. Right now, Lisa should be bathing in music collaborations, plastered all over TV, having her GQs spread like hummus, building hype for the fashion brand she's starting, and much more. YG literally have the most famous female K-pop idol in their roster, and fans feel frustration akin to Jisoo's underutilization. However, whereas Jisoo's stans feel her underutilization is unfair because it's blocking her potential to gain support in the first place, Lisa's stans feel she's being stiffed out of cashing in on the support she's already amassed for herself, despite the odds being stacked against her from the beginning. The point of an underdog story is they're supposed to win the big game in the end, and Lisa stans feel she hasn't won her deserved crown yet. Now remember how I said Blackpink's success comes from two factors before I went on this deep tangent about what each group of stans wants for their bias? Everything I just laid out cultivates into two outcomes. The first being that fans are riled up for new content every time they get it. Rose fans are glad to hear her sing and think that the Rose solo will be the next release. Jennie stans are excited to see if during promotions, Jennie gets to show other parts of her personality and duality. Jisoo stans hope that this will be the comeback that makes Jisoo's visuals go viral and help YG see how much potential is being wasted there. And Lisa stans prepare for another influx of new stans who will help build Lisa's brand and image, and eventually YG will say this is a high enough level of fame for us to finally branch out with Lisa's professional branding. Of course, none of this happens, and when Blackpink disappears again, the cycle starts up again. The other outcome is that fans become more attached to the self-projections they've put into Blackpink. I'm not the only fan who has noticed that Blackpink has become the quintessential group for self-inserting. However, I haven't seen anyone go into why the self-insert fantasy has caused fans to psychologically link themselves to the members' brands and images. Starting with Rose, she's the sweet girl next door. The one with big dreams of going from her small town to fame, fortune, and adoration, while retaining her humble roots and passions about music. For the young girls self-inserting themselves into her shoes, she's the classic Hollywood dream, a rags to riches, dinner with the movie stars, but I'm still down to earth. I only wanted to sing, but now I'm out here with rock stars and socialites, cliché. The fantasy here is getting to live the Hannah Montana life, to have your childhood friends and your hometown and not have to lose them in order to have a successful future. It's a worry that many young people have as they approach adulthood, the desire to balance who they are and who they want to become. Rose represents the idea that there's room for both versions of ourselves. Now, this is not a testament to Rose's actual personality, background, or upbringing, and henceforth the same can be said for the rest of the girls, but it's the image YG puts onto her, and one that fans can latch onto and live out their fantasies through. If Rose ends up as the indie darling who stumbled into mainstream solo success and got to keep her roots while she was at it, then the fantasy will have been fulfilled for fans as well. The fantasy behind Jisoo is a bit more nuanced. While we all wish we looked like her, unfortunately we do not. But the self-inserting that goes into Jisoo isn't that we want our visuals to be appreciated, it's that we want any sort of recognition when we feel as if we're just average and have nothing special to give the world. This statement seems like I'm knocking Jisoo as an individual, but I promise I'm not. I'm merely saying that fans see Jisoo not have a thing that makes her stand out from the crowd besides her visuals, so that's what fans latch onto as the thing that she needs to be acknowledged for. But as harsh as it sounds, there are a lot of pretty people in the industry, so by comparison her visuals could be seen as unnecessary to the Blackpink narrative and industry at large, which is why she gets paid dust. For the girls at home self-inserting into Jisoo, I have a theory that they are the average students, not total losers at their middle or high school, but not the most popular kids either. If they're on a team or in a club, they're the members who contribute, but not in a way that anyone truly notices, as in, if they left, nothing would fundamentally change in said team. They're likely a middle child, with a few friends but not a huge circle. They're the wallflower at the party who will speak but only if spoken to first. They never get recognized for anything because despite being perfectly nice, friendly people, they don't stand out in any way, good or bad. They feel unrecognized and underappreciated because they don't think they have anything to offer those around them to make them get the appreciation and love they wish they had. It's a horrible feeling to have, and something we've all experienced to a degree at one point or another, and it's a feeling these girls can find comfort in by projecting onto Jisoo. If she finally gets the recognition she deserves for her visuals or variety skills, if she can stop being Blackpink's fourth member, if she stops being the least popular, the forgotten one, the background decoration, then people will see her as more than a prop and love her, just as you wish those around you would see you. In regards to Jennie, self-inserting into her has two parts. There's the part where we all want to be glamorous, decked head to toe in Chanel, born into riches, studying abroad in exotic locations, going from playing dress-up in our mother's designer clothes to sitting front row at fashion shows to being pop stars to dating the hottest man in Korea #rest in peace Jinkai. Jennie on the surface lives the life we all dream of, but unlike Rose, she doesn't have the humble girl next door energy along with it. Rose's self-insert journey is the one you have to work for and requires balance, whereas Jennie's is the one you're born into, where you don't have to balance two separate but wonderful lives. Rose's is the achievable dream for anyone, Jennie's is the alternate timeline. Rose lives in reality, Jennie in a fantasy world. Which brings us to the other part of Jennie's self-insert fantasy. All fantasies hide a different reality behind the curtain. As I said, Jennie is the Regina George villain archetype, which means at surface level she's vain, vapid, and a mean girl ha ha ha. But as we see in the movie, Regina is actually insecure and bullies people because of the personal issues she has at home. Now obviously I'm not claiming anything about Jennie's personal life, but as consumers of media, we love when the villain turns out to have sympathetic traits because it humanizes them. We love it even more when the person who is seemingly one thing turns out to be something totally different. It's why we love redemption arcs so much. It's why K-pop stans are obsessed with the idea of an idol having duality, being fierce on stage and cute off stage, or being focused while performing but loud and chaotic off stage. Jennie represents the duality we wish others would see in us. Chances are, most people don't see you as the mean girl archetype or some sort of supervillain. However, they may think you're weird, obsessed with those Asian boys, quirky, quiet, a little off-kilter, and while there's nothing wrong with those things and enjoying what you like, at a point, you probably want people to take you more seriously and see the other sides of you, but you feel like no matter how hard you try to give off another image, you're stuck in the view people already have of you. This is why Jennie stans want her personality to be able to shine through more, because if people see the real Jennie and accept her for the multi-dimensions of her personality and persona, then they'll do the same for you. And finally we get to Lisa, the least complicated member to self-insert into, as she actually ties heavily into the Rose fantasy. Like Rose, Lisa represents the humble beginnings to riches fantasy, but unlike Rose, Lisa doesn't have to stay within the girl next door mindset. She's the underdog who fought the most adversity, she's been through the most hardships, she has to deal with more racist hate, xenophobia, cultural and language differences, and for that she should reap the highest rewards. She should be crowned Queen of Blackpink by the end of this story. She should be the undisputed winner. She should be the Beyoncé, the Camila Cabello, the Justin Timberlake. The other girls can have varying degrees of success once the story of Blackpink has wrapped, but above all else, Lisa needs to be the girl on top, because if not, what was all the struggle for? Why did she endure racism and the like just to not end up as the best-off member? In Mean Girls, we're not satisfied by Katie getting the guy in the end. She has to win Spring Fling Queen and keep all her friends, both plastic and non-plastic. If not, she's cheated out of an equal balance to what all she's had to endure up to this point. When we put that in the context of self-inserting into Lisa, we all have our struggles, and throughout them all, we tell ourselves it'll get better and better things await. It's about hope and optimism, and that's what Lisa represents to her fans. If Lisa can get through all that she did and come out victorious, with a crown in one hand and a bag of money in the other, then surely things will turn out well for you too, won't they? When Lisa gets the solo career and collaborations and Western promotions and the like that she deserves, then she'll have been effectively crowned as the Queen of Blackpink by YG, and her underdog journey will be complete and it'll all have been worth it. And when you're a rich, successful, and content adult, then it'll make the years of hardships you faced as an adolescent worth it. So after the past 3 hours of talking about Blackpink's self-insert fantasies and why fans have latched onto these girls as personas as tightly as Blinks have, what does this have to do with Blackpink being the revolution if, as I said, they are heavily controlled and lack almost any autonomy over their own lives? Because as we all know about Blackpink, they're successful. Their branding with the archetypes of the indie girl next door with big city dreams, the villain with a secret heart of gold, the underdog who came up and showed out beyond anyone's expectations, and the unremarkable girl you can't help but sympathize with has brought a success that is unheard of in K-pop. If it hadn't been for these archetypes and the way fans are able to self-insert into them, Blackpink would never have reached the level they have. A group such as Red Velvet could not have inconsistent releases and promotions like Blackpink's because Red Velvet were not built to be a group you could fantasize to be a member of. Even groups nowadays with smaller discographies like Everglow and ITZY can't pull this marketing strategy off because they're K-pop groups meant to sell the Korean image of what an idol group is, whereas Blackpink is a K-pop group meant to sell the image of a Western idol group, which includes catering to the things American girls like, the Wattpad stories and teen dramas, the tried and true archetypes encountered in high schools across America and in high school-based media. It may seem like YG are just a Korean company who would know nothing about these sorts of things, but I think that does a great disservice to them as a company. Anyone who wants to market their group towards a foreign market will do research into that market and the demographic they're aiming at. So when YG made Blackpink to be Western-focused, even as the group has grown in the West over the past few years, they've had to keep an eye on what American girls like. They look at what kind of female pop stars American girls are gravitating towards. They see them like the boss bitch and filthy rich Ariana Grande types and further project that image onto Jennie. They see indie, alternative girls like Lorde and Halsey and push that onto Rose. They see strong, prominent female rappers who balance that with femininity like Nicki and Cardi and push that onto Lisa. YG knows their Western market, no matter how much it may seem like they don't. And when all this comes together into the self-insert foundation of standing the individual members of Blackpink and using their collective solo stands to support breadcrumb comebacks, YG is effectively taking the psychological projections and expectations the fans have and monetizing them whilst barely having to lift a finger when it comes to promoting the group. The fans' own fantasies are the marketing, and until fans give up and find newer, fresher groups with newer, fresher archetypes to sink their teeth into and tie their dreams and escapist fantasies into, Blackpink will continue to come out on top. Is this morally sound? Depends on who you ask. But is it a smart business decision? Yes. Is it profitable, and are Blackpink swimming in money regardless of how much music they release? LMAO. But what happens when Blinks drop Blackpink and move to other groups who have more diverse archetypes? Eventually we will see the creative self-producing female idol who just wants to fulfill her artistic vision, but the men around her claim to know more than her and are holding her back, or the rebellious girl who doesn't care about idol standards, who curses and drinks and dates publicly and only smiles if she wants to but can never seem to win over the general public due to her brash image. Blackpink's success and branding will breed dozens of other girls like them, with perfectly prepackaged personas that their companies push, unlike any other stereotypes we've seen in the past, such as the savage matinee or bullied leader or the mom and dad of the group. We're not going to have the classic K-pop archetypes as much, but rather these characters that fans can put themselves into the shoes of, who are so devoid of actual personality that it becomes that much easier to imagine yourself as them, to tie yourself into their success story, into their journey, to support everything they do so you can both win in the end. You want Blackpink to be the revolution so that you can be the revolution. But Blackpink aren't changing things so that female idols can have more freedom. They aren't giving women a louder voice or anything that would be seen as revolutionary from our fandom's side of the conversation. However, they are bringing about a shift in the industry, one that will give smart companies a way to keep their groups afloat when the industry is so oversaturated. In the later 4th generation and into the 5th generation, we'll see these Western archetypes become the norm, as well as smaller membered groups, so less archetypes will have to be balanced, a more common trend of starving fans for content so they'll go rabid once anything is actually given to them, and utilizing social and mainstream media to frame how a group is formed and marketed toward their target foreign audiences. So I guess to wrap things up, the title of this video is a little misleading. Blackpink are changing things in the industry, but Blackpink is not the revolution. The personas of Jisoo, Jennie, Rose, and Lisa are the true revolution. Thank you so much for sticking through to the end of this video, and I'd love to hear your opinions on what I've said today. Leave all your positive thoughts in the comments as well as any cat puns you can think of. Bye bye for now.